Good afternoon and welcome to From Where We Are, stories of news and culture through the lens of USC and Southern California. I'm Lexi Rosser.
And I'm Michael Kahn, and we're coming to you live from Studio B in USC's Annenberg Media Center. It's Monday, April 21st. On today's show, Pope Francis passes away, measles returns to the spotlight, and over 1,500 Angelenos could be laid off this upcoming year. All that and more
From Where We Are. But first, today's headlines. A national animal welfare group known as Stop Animal Exploitation Now, or SAEN, wants for the National Institute of Health to pull some of USC's federal research funding. SAEN argues that USC violates federal animal research policies, resulting in severe animal mistreatment. The allegations include unapproved euthanasia and improper surgeries. David Favre, editor-in-chief of the Animal Legal and Historical Center, told the Daily Trojan that he believes USC has taken appropriate action by addressing previous incidents. He believes the National Institutes of Health would say that the problem has been remedied.
This past weekend, vandals with a chainsaw were on the rampage in LA, cutting down dozens of trees on South Grand Avenue and other parts of downtown. Their motive is unknown, and so far, no one has been arrested.
Former Fox News host and podcaster Steve Hilton announced his candidacy for the 2026 California governor's race today. He will launch his campaign with a rally tomorrow in Huntington Beach. The Republican has said that he wants to flip California to a red state and focus on education and affordability issues. His motto is "Make California Golden Again."
A masked thief snatched the bag of Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem at a restaurant in Washington, D.C. on Easter Sunday. The bag contained $3,000 in cash, her passport, her driver's license, blank checks, a makeup bag, an apartment key, and her Department of Homeland Security access card. The Secret Service is investigating the incident.
A brief truce between Russia and Ukraine intended to mark the Easter holiday unfortunately ended sooner than expected. Both sides accuse each other of breaking the planned 30-hour ceasefire. The U.S. and U.K. are calling for an extended ceasefire from both countries, but peace talks remain on hold.
Harvard University has sued the Trump administration over a $2.2 billion federal funding freeze. This lawsuit comes a week after the Trump administration threatened to withdraw billions of dollars from Harvard's research funding after the university defied the administration's demands to limit activism on campus, reform its leadership, and change its admissions policies. Harvard President Alan Garber issued a statement earlier today that the freeze is, quote, unlawful and beyond the government's authority. These are some of the top stories today.
Pope Francis died this morning at age 88 from a stroke and heart failure. Sierra Namvari has the story on how the world is mourning and paying tribute to the leader of the Catholic Church.
Please stand and join me in welcoming the 43rd mayor of our city, our mayor, Karen Ruth Bass.
It's been 861 days since Karen Bass assumed the office of Los Angeles mayor, and the former California representative has faced a number of challenges since. Homelessness, major wildfires, and political upheaval are just the tip of the iceberg. Bass is also juggling a $1 billion.
We are experiencing some technical difficulties, but we'll move on to our next story. The United States is experiencing the second worst measles outbreak in more than 2 decades. As cases climb across the country, doctors are encouraging people to protect themselves from the disease. Justin Haw has the story.
Rebuilding is underway.
By the World Health Organization in 2000, Americans began to consider the disease a relic of the past, an affliction gone the way of smallpox and polio that only popped up in tiny spurts. But 25 years later, measles is back, and doctors like Sahir Khan, an infectious disease specialist with Keck Medicine of USC, are worried.
I think it's very concerning. This is one of the most contagious infectious diseases that we know of.
The United States is in the midst of a measles outbreak, with more than 800 confirmed cases across 25 states. In Texas, where the majority of cases have been reported, 62 people have been hospitalized and 2 school-aged children have died. Here in California, there were 11 confirmed cases as of last week. While there have been no confirmed cases in LA, the disease is continuing to spread quickly. One infected individual can potentially infect 18 others. Why the sudden surge? Khan says people have stopped getting vaccines. Eliminating the spread of measles requires 95% of the population to be vaccinated, but national vaccine rates have fallen to around 90%.
Vaccination rates in many communities around the country have dropped below the level of what we would consider herd immunity. From time to time, there are sporadic cases associated with travel. If you have a herd immunity rate that's sufficient, that the sporadic cases don't turn into an outbreak. But if you have a community where there's not a sufficient vaccination rate to achieve herd immunity, then sporadic cases can lead to an outbreak.
As parents opt to not vaccinate their children who are the most commonly affected by measles, the disease continues to spread. This year, 96% of measles cases came from people who were unvaccinated or had an unknown vaccination status. Khan says the falling vaccine rates are due to misinformation spread on social media, which could also bleed into public policy. This month, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. endorsed the measles vaccine as, quote, the most effective way to prevent the spread of measles, after making a number of controversial statements about the vaccine, including claiming that it was not safety tested.
I think we've lost our collective memory of many of these diseases, because measles, obviously many children were dying of measles back in the 1940s, 1950s, but now, those older generation who remembers that is sort of dying off. Social media has really caused a lot of misinformation.
According to Khan, there are only 2 real ways to protect yourself from the disease: vaccination and reducing exposure to those with measles.
In the long run, people will come to a realization of how deadly some of these infections can be and the importance of vaccination. I would like to think that we can educate people without there having to be outbreaks, but I'm not optimistic in the direction that our national discourse has gone.
Ending the ongoing outbreak will require people to either start vaccinating or a large enough portion of the population to get measles to develop immunity. In the meantime, measles cases and their consequences will continue to climb. For Annenberg Media, I'm Justin Ha.
Pope Francis died this morning at age 88 from a stroke and heart failure. Sierra Namvari has the story on how the world is mourning and paying tribute to the leader of the Catholic Church.
Carissimi fratelli e sorelle, con profondo dolore devo annunciare la morte del nostro Santo Padre Francesco.
That was Cardinal Kevin Farrell announcing the death of Pope Francis this morning in Rome. Farrell's words, recorded at the Vatican, translate to, "This morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father." Pope Francis was born in Argentina. He is the first pontiff from Latin America. He was recognized as a compassionate and inclusive leader of the Roman Catholic Church. Many knew him for his progressive views as an advocate for immigrants and for climate action on the global stage, and for being supportive toward LGBTQ members of the Church. Catholic Angelinos gathered today to grieve at the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels in downtown Los Angeles. Domitila Alvarez is one parishioner who attended the service. She expressed her admiration for Catholic leaders who look out for disadvantaged people.
Para mí que soy católica, 2 papas en todo el mundo, Juan Pablo II y el Papa Francisco, que fueron muy buenos, siempre orando por toda la gente pobre.
She said that for her, as a Catholic, there have been 2 great popes, Francis and John Paul II, who've stood out for how they've prayed for the poor. Marta Trujillo said that she drove an hour and a half from Bakersfield to attend a mass honoring of the Pope.
Y ahora el levantarnos y y saber que ya no está, que ya está al lado de nuestro Señor, pues sí, la verdad se siente tristeza.
Carrillo said it's hard to wake up and know that the Pope isn't here, that he's with God, and that she's deeply sad. She also took comfort in the Pope's vocal support of immigrants.
Pues estuvo diciendo que no perdiéramos la fe, que los inmigrantes que nos sentíamos perseguidos o que se sentían perseguidos, que igual nos mantuviéramos en nuestra fe. Y creo yo que por eso también lo hacía aún más especial.
He was always saying that we immigrants should not lose faith, Trujillo said, that even those who felt persecuted should maintain their faith. Trujillo said this is also what made Pope Francis special. Pope Francis has long held critical views of the Trump administration's treatment of immigrants. Yesterday, Easter Sunday, he met briefly with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. Afterward, the Pope made his final public appearance on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. Cardinal Blaise Cupich, Chicago's Archbishop, echoed the sentiment in an interview with CNN.
When he spoke to the joint session of Congress in the United States, he was very clear in saying and challenging us, let's remember, everybody, we're all immigrants here in this country. The greatest memorial we can have is to make sure that we carry on the vision that he has given us.
Farrell is the Vatican's de facto administrator until the new pope is chosen. For Annenberg Media, I'm Sierra Namvari.
Just a quick walk from the USC campus, the Caruso Catholic Center is holding a service in mourning of Pope Francis' passing. Joining us live from outside the Caruso Catholic Center is ARN producer Lauren Miller to tell us more about the service. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
Thank you. So, how's the overall mood outside of the church this evening?
Yeah, so I would say the overall energy from the students when I entered the church, I noticed was very sad overall.
Yeah, that's really sad to hear, and we can only imagine. So to help us paint a picture of the scene, what does it look like outside of the Catholic Center, especially as guests were entering the church?
Yeah, so what's very interesting, what I observed is when students were entering the church, they would get down on their knee at the entrance and do the sign of the cross, and then they would take a seat.
Yeah, and for the service itself, was there anyone speaking, writing a sermon of some sorts? And if so, who was it that, what was said in their speech?
Yeah, so who was speaking at the church was Father Matthew Wheeler. He led a discussion really honoring the Pope's legacy. And from his discussion, some of the topics that were brought up is how impactful Pope Francis was, specifically how he challenged people to think creatively and connect with Jesus through prayer. And then it was very interesting. Father Matthew Wheeler also discussed how he was in Brazil in 2013 when Pope Francis became Pope, and he talks about when he was in Brazil, the excitement and amazing energy that people had when he was appointed.
This is really interesting to hear. Thank you so much, Lauren, for helping us set the scene at one of many churches honoring Pope Francis's life today.
Thank you so much for having me.
That was our producer, Lauren Miller, at the Caruso Catholic Center. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass delivered her State of the City address today, outlining her priorities for Los Angeles. Kim Lee has the story.
Please stand and join me in welcoming the 43rd mayor of our city, our mayor, Karen Ruth Bass.
It's been 861 days since Karen Bass assumed the office of Los Angeles mayor, and the former California representative has faced a number of challenges since. Homelessness, major wildfires, and political upheaval are just the tip of the iceberg. Bass is also juggling a $1 billion budget deficit. Today, Bass offered her assessment of where LA stands right now during her annual State of the City address. She also released her proposed budget for the next fiscal year. Bass focused on LA wildfire recovery efforts and how the city will navigate budget constraints. Bass talked up rebuilding efforts in the Pacific Palisades.
So let me just tell you, we have issued permits to rebuild twice as fast as after the Camp and Woolsey fires. We restored water nearly a year and a half faster than after the campfire. And we restored power in just 2 months. Los Angeles, I assure you, rebuilding is underway.
She also proposed new action items to expedite rebuilding. 1. To establish a self-certification program for permits, and 2. To launch AI initiatives to accelerate the permit progress. She also called on the City Council to pass an ordinance that would waive permit fees. At the same time, Bass must deal with a staggering budget deficit. It comes as a result of overspending, labor contracts, liability payouts, and tax revenues being lower than anticipated. Bass's current proposed budget calls for laying off over 1,500 city workers, consolidating 4 departments, and eliminating the city's health commission. She says she is still seeking alternatives to layoffs. Bass spoke directly to city workers.
My proposed budget, unfortunately, includes layoffs, which is a decision of absolute last resort. The city attorney and I will be in Sacramento this week to meet with legislative leaders and advocate for resources while also working to manage the increasing liabilities. So let me assure our hardworking public servants that I will never, ever stop fighting for you.
Once finalized, the mayor's proposed budget will go to the city council for a vote. 2025 will be a pivotal year for Mayor Bass, who is running for re-election in 2026. Next year's election promises to be a referendum on how she does her job this year. For Annenberg Media, I'm Kim Lee.
That's a wrap on Coachella 2025. USC students spent the past 2 weekends in the desert bumping that to sets from stars like Charli XCX and Green Day.
USC students turned up the heat at Coachella this weekend and last, as desert temperatures soared over 100 degrees with energy levels to match. Charli XCX and Lady Gaga were crowd favorites, and the audience buzzed under Kind Music's Peace Cloud display. Here's USC's takeaways from the weekend. Weekend 1 saw triple-digit temperatures. However, Catherine Wong, a junior cinematic arts major, wasn't bothered by the extreme heat.
I went first weekend. Honestly, I was completely fine. I'm from California, so it was really hot for me too, but it was totally fine for me.
Matthew O'Toole, a senior studying chemical engineering, was a festival first-timer and had a blast despite the scorching conditions and Travis Scott's technical difficulties.
I actually camped, so it was pretty brutal. It was 103 on Friday and then 97 the next day, so definitely pretty steamy. I really enjoyed Green Day. Unfortunately, Travis Scott, I was expecting him to be my favorite, but they messed up the sound, which is pretty disappointing. No, I had a blast overall.
Kate Peterson is a junior majoring in political science. She agrees with O'Toole, saying Green Day's headliner performance was the rose of her weekend. She called her feet the thorn. Along with wishing she wore more comfortable shoes, she said the heat and dust were definitely a problem.
We literally almost passed out. They sell out of water really quick, so we got free cans of Coke from some pop-up and we filled them up with water.
Unbearable food truck prices and lines and blistering heat somehow made Justin Bieber's inebriety a little more understandable. Many audience members said they would approach the weekend differently if they could go back. Campbell Spoor, a freshman majoring in environmental science, said he was bummed to miss some of the early performers in the day.
I'd probably change the way that we did it because we missed a lot of people that we were originally going to go and see just because we showed up pretty late.
Coachella 2025 was one for the books. Next year, we hope to see more lineup camaraderie, shout out Billie Joe Armstrong and Charli XCX, more surprise stars like Dave Grohl and Cynthia Erivo, and maybe even a comeback for Deadmau5. Preferably a sober one. Who do you hope to see headline in 2026? For Annenberg Media, I'm Issa Gray.
And that's all we have time for on today's From Where We Are. Anthony Klingerman executive produced and directed today's show. Lauren Miller produced. We had help from Andy Kirby, Annabelle LaRue, and Issa Grief.
Our board operator is Grayson Solomon. Our live stream operator is Dimitri Prodinentis, and Derek Renfro composed our theme music.
Catch us live on YouTube at Annenberg Radio News Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Subscribe to From Where We Are wherever you're listening right now. Finally, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Annenberg Radio. I'm Lexi Rosser.
And I'm Michael Kahn. From all of us at Annenberg Radio, wherever you are, we hope you'll join us